So
Question. Where did you save those Mesa Hills
I saved them
posters?
to the Mesa Hills Church folder in like the production thing.
The P folder?
Yeah. So if you go in the P folder and then there's the Mesa Hills Bible Church, and then you click in there and there's a folder that says Provost, like in all caps.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And how many did they do?
Two.
They did 2.
Mhm.
They didn't do an ad too.
I
They did 2 separate promos.
yeah.
And then they didn't do anything else.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I don't think there was any ad at least.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, unless you're talking about if they're like advertising their VBS.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they did two. So they did one promo and one advertising the VBS.
Oh.
They mentioned the VBS.
All right. I need to listen to him then. So he's gonna say.
Okay,
All right. Thanks.
cool. No worries.
Zach's been telling me that by not putting people here, like they're much smaller than I am in the video.
You want me here?
So, no, right where the mic is, and then sort of Dutch toward me, so we're still getting not just your profile, which was the reason I was putting people on the end, but Zach said the shot isn't that great.
So I'm not clear. I'm not clear. Am I sitting in the right place?
Yep, that's good. Just get the mic and, get the mic in front of you.
Okay. There we go. Is it loose? Doesn't want to, there. Okay,
And then we got our headphones on.
okay.
These, okay, here we go. Now we have fun with it. Okay, where are we at here? Okay, we're over a minute out, which is good. Okay, so. Is it 4?
Yeah, 4 and 5.
4 and 5. Okay.
I put a little paper there.
Okay, and then these are up. Right. Okay. Okay, and this is now we're live?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot, James.
No worries.
Show 250. Is this is show 250?
Don't know whether you can celebrate yet.
And this is show 250, right? $250 show. America's 250th. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, so Candace, remember, high energy, just voice,
Okay.
but straightforward. Don't talk around the subject. Just,
Okay.
straight.
So
yeah.
don't be afraid of implicating him.
Be careful.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be careful. Separate yourself from it. Remember, we're here. We need to investigate this as press, as everybody, and we don't have a dog in the fight. We don't have an axe to grind. We're trying to get to the truth, and we can't have this just out there like all the other things that are, not reported on. And so people think one side or the other, and it's bad for our community. We need to settle things. There's something this big, right? So
Yeah.
so just do what you think is truth. Remove yourself.
What is true? I agree with that.
Okay.
That's easiest.
Welcome to the Peak News. Love to hear the shofar blast. You know what that means? Wake up, OU sleepers, wake up. And we're all called to be watchmen, not just me. So you're listening right now, but you should also be watching because so much is going on in our community here in Colorado Springs that needs to be reported on. It needs to be talked about. It needs accountability and transparency. And that's what the Peak is all about. We are here to say the quiet stuff out loud and be real media, do real journalism, which is to serve our community, not special interests, not government, not corporations, but you, by getting you information so that you can make good decisions in your life, in your business, and we can do it together for our community. And we are here celebrating show 250. Woohoo! We got to this next benchmark of 250 programs today as we finish out the month of June. And we have a huge topic to talk to you about today, and that is breaking news, in a way, continuing news, and things that we need to do, that we need to look into, not just us, but we as a whole community, regarding the claims that have come out during this hate crime hoax trial that was held last week up in Denver. If you're not familiar with this, well, where you been? But we're going to fill you in on it. We're not going to assume that you know. So in this segment, I'm going to be doing a very quick review of this case and also the claims of the Daily Wire that originally came out in November, and a brand new article just published this morning by the same reporter, Luke Rosniak, I think is his name, that, you know, why is this breaking nationally and not locally, right? Why does it keep breaking nationally and not locally? Why is someone from way outside of here think that this is a story when most of the press in town, especially when it came out, maybe they're changing their minds now, has seen this as not being a story? And we, to toot our own horns, and we will, because we went out on a limb back in November when we were being told by many people, there's no story here, don't touch it, this implicates the mayor, it looks like you're attacking him. And we said, no, we're not doing that. This is an egregious claim in this Daily Wire article against our mayor, and part of the media's job is to investigate, especially on the local level. How embarrassing that it was broken nationally. And that we are to be here as investigators, just as the police should and law enforcement should, but part of this story is how law enforcement hasn't been, so that either Mayor Yemi in this situation can be held accountable or exonerated. But we cannot leave this just hanging out there like so many things in our region, and I'm sure elsewhere, but this is where we live, where people think one thing, but it's never really investigated. It's just out there, and it's polarizing, and it divides us. Can we get to the bottom of something, especially this serious? So again, I'll review the case in a moment, but want to let you know what we're doing on the program. First, in the next segment, City Councilman of Colorado Springs, Dave Donaldson, is going to be on. He's been tracking this since the beginning, and he called for an investigation into this. We're then going to be reviewing major points out of the Daily Wire article with Candace Stolzstream, who is our citizen journalist, who is here today, covered the trial last week, and is here today to talk with us about that, as well as highlights or lowlights or whatever you want to think of it of the trial, because she was there on Tuesday when Mayor Yemi and his wife testified. And then at the end, since this is Media and Education Thursday, I'm going to give a call out to all of us and in our different sectors to investigate this. Because if there's not public pressure and if there's not action, it's just going to be one of those things. You know, but it's not going to go away. This is too big. We knew this from the beginning. So really quick, in the last minute, during the 2023 mayoral election in the runoff, Wayne Williams, Yemi Mobolade, someone sent a video to the press of a Yemi Mobolade campaign sign with the N-word written on it in red spray paint and a small burning cross in front of it, sent it to the press. It was expected, at the time, it was probably a hoax. Even Mayor Yemi said that. And it came out about a year later that it was. There were people that had perpetrated it. But the real scandal is a claim, and this was affirmed by the FBI investigator testifying last week, that when they came to interview Mayor Yemi about it, he lied about his connections to these people, his knowing about it, and the claims that came off the stand last week affirmed all of this. So we're doing a review of the hate crime hoax trial here on The Peak on show number 250, where we say the quiet stuff out loud. We'll be right back. Okay, that went quick. Okay. make sure, this is very important, we're often forgetting to do it, which is that after the music stops playing on incoming, I have to hit these two buttons, or else Dave Donaldson's call does not go out on the live stream. So I have to remember to hit this in order to bring that about, or else on the live stream there's silence. So he's supposed to tell me, I'm supposed to remember. I'm just letting you that you just, if you do this to me, I'll know what that means. But sometimes
So it's
as soon as
an
the,
incoming that you have to.
but I have to wait
out.
until the music plays because it's copyrighted music. And if it goes off on the live stream, we can have our algorithm blown because we have copyright for broadcast, but not for this.
Oh,
So I have to wait, and as soon as the music is over, I have to hit it, or at some point before Dave speaks. So
so in the 12-minute segment, I'm going to rely on you for questions, right?
well, there's
you're
sort of
gonna-
yeah. I mean, there are questions, and you can see here on segment 4 that I've put some of the things, but like at the next break, we can talk about other things that you would like, or even if you have a couple more here. I mean, I started writing down the things that you were saying.
Yeah, I like the idea, the point you made that we are now surfing off the Daily Wire, and it wasn't that they were not rebuffed also in their first attempt in November to call this out, right?
Right, but
This is-
according to this article, the Yummy's office was trying to tell
Deny.
people to put out that narrative that the Daily Wire can't be trusted. Like that's a big thing. Is Dave on?
Yemi as the victim, and that FBI DOJ letter, the very first line says that you were the subject, and we have not seen.
Okay, so that's another thing. So
Mhm.
Yummy is victim, but was subject of
He
investigation.
was the actual subject of the investigation.
But according to that article, there was a claim that the first black mayor can't be.
That isn't attributed, by the way. There's no attribution to that quote.
There is originally from
Is there?
that came out of whoever this FBI official was, who originally was the whistleblower for him.
Yes.
So
But
that
who said it to him is what my point.
well,
is.
we've never found out who that whistleblower is.
And I think that's when we ask people investigate,
Mm.
go after it.
Well,
Yeah.
we have whistleblowers, but they don't want to be identified yet, and we're trying to work on that. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to us on AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer, and we got dirty laundry today, folks, big time. When a national organization like the Daily Wire, which isn't a small, unreputable conservative mouthpiece kind of thing, they're really are news and investigative, and they're recognizes that all over our country and I'm sure internationally, continues to follow this story. There's something there, and we as a local society can't just ignore that. So we are here on the Peak on our Media and Education Day because part of this is why has the media not been covering it except us. Others have been doing it, but as far as we know, not really investigating it. Even some have claimed that the Daily Wire shouldn't be listened to, like attack the messenger rather than put shoe leather out like real journalists, hit the streets. And I want to let you know, Jordan Baldwin, who's our leading investigative reporter, he would be here today, had a family emergency, so please pray for him and his family. He couldn't be here. But we have Candace Stolzriem, who's one of our citizen journalists and was up reporting, did a live call-in last week. So Candace, thanks for being here today and coming in quick when Jordan said he couldn't.
Glad to be here. This is fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, this story has so many places to go, and thankfully, we put this show together rather quickly, and someone who has been with us on the show since the beginning of the story back in November is City Councilman Dave Donaldson, and he is on the line right now. Dave, you there?
Yeah, I am, Haim, so good afternoon to you and Candace and your listeners.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And so just going back to November, you were on the program that week. We did a whole week of programs when this Daily Wire article broke. From the beginning, what were people telling you about the story? That it was nothing, that it was something, because you decided to stay in this and keep it in the news cycle and put out reports. But what were you hearing back at the beginning about these claims against Mayor Yemi?
Well, I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to, but I called for the mayor to specifically address some accusations that were made in the Daily Wire article, that he had met with the FBI 3 times. The first 2 times he strenuously denied communicating with Mr. Bernard, and they already had his text messages, and they knew he had made a phone call. So they were listening, and now with the trial that just occurred and wrapped up on Friday, the FBI testified to that the mayor made false statements to them in those interviews initially. And it was only a little bit later when they interviewed him, I think it was a 3rd time,
yes,
that he no longer strenuously denied it, and then he showed them some actual text message screenshots and admitted to having the phone call with Mr. Bernard 3 days after the hate crime hoax. So I will say, and I don't want to go on too far, but I have been disappointed in local media coverage on this. The Gazette was there at City Council on Tuesday of this week, 2 days ago, when I called for an investigation into the mayor. There's a little bit of a statement I made. They didn't report one word of it.
Really?
There was a reporter from another television channel that was there. She didn't report one word of it. So it doesn't appear to me that they are eager or curious about this or really doing their duty as the news to report on this.
Do you have, and you know that a big part of this, even above whether Mayor Yemi did it or did lie or not lie, and one thing I left out in the first segment was part of this was when the DOJ decided to not continue an investigation, and we now know that they were investigating Yemi, and he was the subject in the investigation because he was the first elected black mayor of Colorado Springs. That's what came out from the whistleblower, still unidentified by the Daily Wire article, that there's some kind of, special protection here, or special, class of people that don't get investigated. How do you react to that?
That is okay. Here's the interesting thing: the mayor and his folks that work for him tried to discredit the Daily Wire and this report. And there's even a quote: the mayor, when he made his statement, what he said was, "It is unfortunately not a new trend," and I'm quoting the mayor now, "that politically motivated websites will weigh in with no regard for accuracy or truth and interest only in sensationalism and scandal." So he's saying that the Daily Wire is awful, they're not truthful, they're only sensational. But everything we learned in the trial corroborates what the Daily Wire reported, that Luke Rosiak's article. Everything he reported has turned out to be true as much as was that we can compare. The only thing they didn't discuss at the trial was exactly why they stopped investigating. They said, well, he got a lot of phone calls and emails, so maybe he forgot. That sounds pretty weak, because I think they knew that a mayoral candidate in Colorado Springs was going to have a lot of phone calls and text messages, right? Anybody would be surprised if they didn't. So everything is true so far in that article. So what about that piece, that the investigation was stopped because the DOJ didn't want to indict or charge the first elected black mayor? I think that should be looked at. And I was encouraged, I think yesterday the news came out that the DOJ is reopening some investigations. The cocaine in the White House,
Mm-hmm.
of Justice, I think it was Alito's brief to the media, things like that. And this kind of fits that pattern where something happens, it looks like it should be investigated, and the investigation is squashed.
So, as a city councilman, what can you do? What can the city council do regarding this investigation? I've reached out to District Attorney Michael Allen to ask whether they will investigate based on your call for an investigation, based on this Daily Wire article. He has told me that until someone actually makes a formal complaint, that they can't do anything, even within the election fraud unit. So that this is where the citizens need to take action. So what are you plan to do to follow through on this so it doesn't just fade away?
Well, what I have already done is I've communicated with different agencies or departments and different outlets, including the Daily Wire, right? I was quoted in that article.
Yes.
And have tried to encourage, or if I need to make a statement, whatever it is, I'm going to do that so that citizens know whether or not their mayor. Well, I used to want to know if whether or not he lied to the FBI, but we know that's a fact now, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've said that he made false statements. Now the claim is, well, he just forgot. That's what he says. Apparently, the article says that was not what the FBI thought initially. They felt like he was intentionally misleading them. So it may be that the right agency to investigate this is the FBI because of the crime that was committed. Now that we have a new, different president, different head of the DOJ, and we're still waiting for President Trump to appoint the U.S. attorney for Colorado. There's an interim one in there now. That person, or those two people, really, the head of the DOJ and our new U.S. attorney here in Colorado, I believe they could reopen this and look to see. There's an accusation here. It's been made in the article, and then also Mr. Bernard himself, right, one of the suspects who was convicted, has brought some other people into this, right? He says that Representative
Regina English,
was part of the initial, at least, plan to have some kind of an event to drum up support for the first black candidate for mayor. And now, is that true? I don't know. But like you and I, we need the criminal justice system, right, our court system, to figure this out for us. Those are serious charges against elected officials.
Yeah.
They're trying to manipulate the system and unfairly impact an election.
Yeah, and we need the press doing it too. We need the whole community doing it. I mean, Mayor Yemi needs to either be held accountable or have his name cleared. We can't just have this fester. Well, thank you, Colorado Springs City Councilman Dave Donaldson, for being on the Peak.
Hey, thank you, hon.
We'll be right back. Okay, good deal.
It was good.
Okay, so in this next, I realized that
Kind of
we.
let out what we need to cover.
What?
Yeah, he kind of teased out what
Right.
we need to
Well,
cover.
but I think that in the next one, because we're making this too Yemi centric and we haven't really covered the trial,
Okay.
that let's talk about other things that went on, because really this was not, as we said, this was not, and we'll mention this here and then you'll mention it in the next segment as we planned. This was not a trial of Mayor Yemi. These are things that came out, and these are things that we wanted Dave Donaldson to comment on. But now let's spend this 5 minutes focused more on the trial, on the defendants, what came out, why they were convicted. Let's do that.
Just so I get this right.
Okay.
Bernard is serving time right now. It's like a life.
Yeah,
sentence,
that
isn't
was,
it?
I can quickly talk about that.
Yeah. And wasn't it murder for hire for
it was-
3 murders?
Well,
Or was it
specifically, he was already in jail for something, but he was convicted of this hiring a person who he hired the person, but that person was acquitted of murder charges, but was not acquitted of, I think, conspiracy. So I don't know, and I don't know all the details of that trial.
Well, Dave said that the actual murders were hideous. They were so grisly.
Well, the one with this flyjack, he was shot
Yeah.
like
In the head.
17 times
Yeah.
and like 7 times in the head. So it was a hit. But the guy who supposedly Derek hired, and is now life plus in jail for having done Bernard, the person he hired was acquitted of the murder.
How in the heck?
Right. But yet, right. So I don't understand that. It's just another weirdness of this.
Was
But-
it 2 or 3 murders?
Well, this one that we specifically talk about is the one murder of the rapper Flyjack.
Yeah.
That was the specific trial that happened, a couple of months ago with Bernard, and then in April with the oh shoot, what's his name? I'm blanking on the guy's name. Who was, but he was let go. So, but we only have like 4 minutes here, so I really want to stick to the trial itself. So I'll give a quick intro,
Okay.
but if you can, because I know you weren't there on Thursday,
No.
when Derek, testified. So
Right.
so I can do a lot of synopsis
Yeah.
of this, and then you can add in what did Mayor Yemi, his part of the testimony, what did he say?
Mhm.
Because you were there for that. So why don't I do bookends? I'll do a minute or so introducing. You'll have a couple of minutes to talk about Yemi's testimony because you were there for it, and his wife, and then I'll finish up.
Okay.
And then we'll really interview in the next segment about all the things that came out in Derek Bernard's testimony, which is really what we're.
I think it's worthy of noting that all of this was really designed to pin this on Wayne Williams.
Right.
That,
And I've reached out to
yeah.
him, and I need to mention.
Mhm.
We are 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Contact us at lewiscustompainting.com. That's lewiscustompainting.com.
Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to us on AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer, the longest call letters and name of a radio station ever. I have to say it a million times a day, so it rolls off the tongue. This is show 250 of the Peak, and we're not celebrating this, but there's a national news item regarding this hate crime hoax where the defendants, 2 of the defendants were convicted, found guilty. Last week, Mayor Yemi testified, and there's been all these implications, a new Daily Wire article that came out today about it. And so we're doing our program today on that. There's so much to this story. Originally, when this came out in November, we were told by people, there's no story here. It's a nothing sandwich. Don't worry about it. And mostly the media ignored it. And we didn't. And we've done many, many, many shows on it and updates. And here we go. As Councilman Dave Donaldson just said, these claims of the Daily Wire article, the things that we've put out there also, every part of the testimony last week confirmed these things. Now, one of the what we're going to talk about in this segment is Derek Bernard, who is the main defendant, who's accused of coordinating this whole thing. He was convicted along with Ashley Blackcloud of making threats over the internet because they did transmit this hoax over the internet. And it seemed for a while, and Mayor Yemi was listed as a victim, as his family was. But from the beginning, it seemed like it was known this was a hate crime hoax, and the actual victim of this was Wayne Williams, who was running against Yemi. And the election wasn't that, not a lot of votes separated them, so this could have absolutely swayed the election. We've had Wayne Williams on the show. We've invited him to come on next week. We've also invited Mayor Yemi to come on next week and other people who can comment on this. So we're going to continue on this. Why? Not to attack Mayor Yemi, as we've been accused of. We don't have an axe to grind. We don't have a dog in the fight. We're real media. What we're doing this is because these are egregious charges. We're the local people. We need to work on this. We need to clear his name or hold him accountable, one or the other. And police and media and the whole community should be up in arms about this, and like Councilman Donaldson, calling for an investigation. So Candace Stoltrum, who's one of our citizen journalist reporters here. We love that. She was up on Tuesday when Mayor Yemi and his wife testified. What was the testimony like of Mayor Yemi on the stand?
Well, I would say it revealed the personal side of the story, because Mayor Yemi was visibly shaken as he testified. He was brought to tears on several occasions. In his own words, he says, "This entire event has blown up my life," and he never wanted to see Colorado Springs burn. So he's adamant about distancing himself from being a collaborator or being a planner in the inception of the entire idea. But as the trial progressed, the evidence began to belie what he was saying. A lot of the concentration was on communication with Derek Bernard through text messaging, and later a major focus on an FBI letter, DOJ FBI letter back to Yemi after their investigation was completed.
So this letter supposedly exonerated him, and he then went on and made a public statement based on this letter. But we were told from the beginning it's probably sort of a form letter. It wasn't like a personal letter. But what came out in the trial regarding?
Actually, I disagree with that.
Okay.
It was called the exhibit was GG. I remember it vividly. It was a letter on DOJ letterhead. And the first line of the letter said that you, Mr. Mobilade, have been the subject of this investigation. And then it goes on to say that we're telling you, officially informing you that this investigation has been closed, although it could potentially be reopened. And then the third paragraph of the letter said that this letter is by no means to be intended as a form of exoneration for you. In other words, stay tuned because more could happen in the future.
And yet, at the time using the letter, this is when Mayor Yemi made a statement that he had been exonerated.
Yes.
Okay. You're listening to The Peak. When we come back with citizen journalist reporter Candace Stoltrum, we're going to continue to update you on what she found to be the most important parts of the trial. In the end, it's not for us to determine the truth. That would be you and potentially the courts. You're listening to The Peak, and we'll be right back. Sorry, I know that's a really short segment. We have more. We have more time.
I thought it was the long one.
No, that was the 5-minute one. Okay.
By the way, it's
Stutstream. Am I saying Stoltz? I'm putting an L in there.
Yeah, it's like a whole
Sorry.
different family.
I apologize.
Okay. Because I imagine we'll.
Okay. Now Jordan was so. Okay, so Jordan is writing me. Hey, buddy, I'm going to continue with Candace. Let's have you on as soon as possible next week. Period. Jordan was saying he's listening and he could comment, but I'll just see some of the points he has. Yeah, the FBI. We have 30 seconds. The FBI agent on the stand said that, like, when they asked, do you feel that he was being purposely deceptive? They said they couldn't determine that. Like, yes, he did lie, but was he doing it purposely or did he just forget? Like, they never determined that.
He did say he was 120% sure that he never had a conversation with Derek Bernard after.
Right.
Yeah. After the
I'm just
incident.
saying what the FBI said.
120% sure.
Okay,
That's
so bring that up.
Pretty intentional. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Peak News on AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer. I'm Chaim Goldman. The Watchmen are here doing a hate crime hoax update with Candace Stutzriem. Stop adding an L to her name, Stutzriem. And so in this segment, this is our long segment, going into more parts of the trial here. And to review real quick, that this hate crime hoax trial happened last week. The two defendants who were on trial, Derek Bernard, Ashley Blackcloud, were convicted of was like a hate crime of threatening someone over the internet. And the whole question in the defense on this was, we planned this. Yemi knew we planned this, but even if he didn't, we have a First Amendment right to stage a hoax, to do something like this. There's nothing illegal about burning a cross. And we weren't threatening anybody. We were trying to help him, which is why on other shows I've called this the help crime hoax, not the hate crime hoax, and that the real victim, even though Yemi was listed as a victim and testified as a victim, that he was under investigation. That came out from the FBI. We just talked about that. And that really it was Wayne Williams, his opponent, who was targeted here because it was felt, and he was accused that this was done by white supremacists on Wayne Williams' side, and so that Wayne should be, somehow hurt because of that. And Derek Bernard, who's the main perpetrator here, it seems, he said all that. He said that on the stand. He also said it, by the way, you can check it out. There's a video that he put up about a year and a half ago online. We also have it on the hate crime hoax page on our website, thepeak.news, called Dear Yemi. It's about a 7-minute video where he makes similar claims to what he did on the stand, implicating a lot of different people and saying that this was done at a previous election, which we'll get to, and that he and Mayor Yemi were in on it from the beginning and throughout. So, Candace, what are some of the main points that you would like to make regarding this coming out of the trial, and especially that when you were up there covering it last Tuesday?
Well, I just want to, first of all, give credit to this reporter, Luke Rosiak with the Daily Wire. I sat there all day Tuesday, and honestly, if I had written an account based on my notes, it would have looked nearly identical to this, because the structure of the article, the timeline of how they report the events. I'm just here to say I believe this is highly credible reporting.
Okay, and by the way, you can go on we're like the only media that promotes other media. We promote the Gazette, we promote KRDO. They've both been covering it, and he took a lot of his information from there. Is to go on the Daily Wire and put in, Mayor Yemi or whatever, and read the past articles, but there's a brand new article today, the 29th of May.
Yes, and it's growing legs like a centipede. It was picked up by the Citizen Free Press, which is 22 million circulation, and also the Daily. Let's see, Ben Shapiro, another.
Well, that's part of the Daily Wire.
Yeah, he owns that, right? So anyway.
So what
kudos to
amazing being covered around the country, but not so much here. But we've seen that from the beginning.
Yes. So back to the communications. There was a lot of attention focused on the email exchange between Bernard and Mayor Yemi. These were communications before, pretty much the night of, or right around the event itself, and then following. And both the prosecution and the defense used the same email thread, of course, taking different tacks on the communication. But this is where we see those, the incendiary quotes like, I'm mobilizing my squadron, Black Ops style, and the Klan.
This is from Derek Bernard to Mayor Yemi. And this came out in the federal charges that came out in November.
Yes. Yeah. And basically what Mr. Bernard is reassuring Mayor Yemi that he's got his back. His focus is on winning the prize of getting him over the finish line, and that he's going to deliver on his promises. And then the communications after the event were pretty much like, we did it, the victory is beautiful. And I know you're busy right now, but we'll talk about, quote, the rest of the business after you get settled into office. I'm paraphrasing his words there. But I think it's interesting to note that if you look at Mayor Yemi's remarks to Bernard, he's very careful to not say the quiet part out loud. Let's say that. In other words, to actively exactly identify what their plans were for that night. He goes right up to the edge of it, but he never actually says it out loud that he knew exactly what they intended to do. He just knew that they intended to do it. They did it, and it worked. So,
So
yes.
I want to make, a point that really clearly that Mayor Yemi was not on trial at this trial. He was testifying as a victim, but this is the first time that he's really allowed himself to be questioned. Ever since this happened, we and all the rest of the press in town have wanted to get statements from Mayor Yemi, and he put out a few official ones, including one where he said he didn't lie. He did a YouTube, I think, on that. And but the claim was, and he said it to me personally, I'm not talking about this because there's a trial coming up and I don't want to interfere with that in any way. Well, now that the trial is over, we have reached out to Mayor Yemi's office and been told that I invited him to come on, and like we do things at the Peak, with no gotchas. You get the questions ahead of time. You can prepare. But we want an actual conversation here, and we've been told at this time he's not interested in doing that. But again, the claim was always that I can't do this because of the trial. But as we want to say, he was not on trial. But evidence that came out during the trial from Derek Bernard, from Yemi's testimony, from the FBI agent, has opened up this can of worms and affirmed what was in the original Daily Wire article and now today. So what's another point?
Well, that there was a phone call that transpired after the hoax event, and previous to the trial, Mayor Yemi was quoted as saying he was 120% sure that he did not speak with Derek Bernard following the event. But once they produced the evidence of the phone call,
A 5-minute call to the jail where he
yes,
was. Yeah.
yes, and
Because Derek Bernard was already in jail on other issues.
yes,
Yeah.
on other issues, which is interesting in itself. So he was forced to recant those words. I really feel the most telling part was when the FBI DOJ presented their Exhibit GG, which was intended to specifically inform Mayor Yemi that it wasn't Derek Bernard or Ashley Blackcloud that they were investigating. It was Mayor Yemi himself that was the subject of their investigation. And there had been an interview conducted, and this letter was to inform him that the investigation was now officially closed. And as we mentioned already, or Mr. Donaldson mentioned, we really don't have a source on who in the Biden administration decided to close this investigation. But we believe now, with what we know in retrospect, that it's definitely worthy of taking a second look at this. Because the last line of the letter says, "This letter is by no means intended to exonerate you. You do not have a clean bill of health." Meaning, you better sleep with one eye open, because it's very likely that you're gonna hear more about this investigation.
And yet, the claim of the original Daily Wire article is that they decided to not go after him because how could we do that to the first elected black mayor of Colorado Springs, which again then opens up this whole, protected class and all of these things that we've been seeing in our country, where certain people have special rights.
Yes, and so we're in a new day right now where we're seeing the DOJ reopening some of these old cases that really are worthy of taking a second look. But there's a lot to be said about the letter, because 2 days after the letter came out, Mayor Yemi did a video, and he portrayed himself as the victim. And I actually like what you said, Haim, that it was, truthfully, if you look at this in the big picture, Wayne Williams was actually the victim of this. This was clearly
His opponent in the election, in the mayoral election.
This was in the final weeks
Mhm.
of the runoff election. So the timing of it is very important. This was to imply that his opposition was
A racist.
and willing to pull this off. And I will say, the ruse was perpetrated, I believe, by and I'm wading into something that I'm reluctant to do it, but the testimony of Abby Mobilade, Mrs. Mobilade, that was that same day on Tuesday. She described about even though she was told,
Yes, we have a minute.
oh, 1 minute, it was 99.7% certain that this was a hoax. In that 0.03%, she just claimed that she couldn't sleep at night, and they took it as a credible threat to the point where they put up ladders against their house and taught their children fire egress procedures, and they had a trauma kit, and they wouldn't let their kids play outside anymore. I really believe that was almost more of the drama to add fuel to the hoax. That it showed that Mrs. Mobilade was absolutely convinced it was real.
And interesting, and as pointed out in the article, and the fact that there was all this footage. And one of the things that our citizen journalist said, this brought out how much we're being watched all the time, because there was video of so much that the fire of the cross was lit on the twine that was around it, which only burned, according to surveillance video, for 20 seconds, which means that the person who lit it was the one that did the video. And so from the very beginning, it was seen as a hate crime hoax by law enforcement, and why even 2 years later, the Mobilades are still traumatized by this is a big question. I'd love to ask Yemi about that, but he would need to come on the show for us to do that. He's invited to do so. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to The Peak, and we'll be back with a call to everyone to investigate.
I hadn't said to you before how I really felt that her actions, she was trying to make it look like,
Remember, we're still on live stream.
oh, right.
No, but it's okay. We just said it on air.
I was
But
reluctant to bring it up because I know it's a departure, not just from the main
right.
story, but and also from Derek and Mr. Bernard and Black. It's their trial, but
Right.
nevertheless, it strayed off into some important area that it was really intended to corroborate the message of the hoax, that they took it so seriously to go to those measures.
And even from the beginning, I mean, it came out early on that he suspected that it might be a hoax, or that his people came out with it. So,
99.7. That's 0.03 chance. Percent chance that it was genuine.
I want to just see the part where, okay.
Maybe it would be worth saying, they were convicted. That it's an absolute conviction, and then West pled out. So, the other.
Well, this segment I really need to spend on this, calling out the community, and not,
Oh, okay.
I'm going to step into the media part of it, and I'm going to read out of the article here. Because it is Media and Education Day.
Sure.
So I'll probably take about 4 or 5 minutes, and then if you listen to what I'm saying, and, we can talk about being citizen journalists and the fact that this is what it's going to take. It's going to take whistleblowers. It's going to take, law enforcement. It's going to take the press. It's going to take community leaders. It's going to take everybody because, okay, we're back.
Quite truthfully, if I weren't there, I couldn't deny what Vanessa Zink is trying to, I was there.
Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman, here with Candace Stutz-Ream, our citizen journalist reporter who was covering this hate crime hoax trial last week. But today, and we've been covering this hate crime hoax trial, but one of the big stories, or maybe even the bigger story, and we've been talking about this way back, when this story broke, it was Thursday afternoon, it was right off after and we're not on Fridays. And I was like, this is the biggest story in our town, and I can't talk about it for 4 days. When we got to Monday afternoon, the press had hardly reported on it. We were blown away. And then as articles started trickling out, a week later with the Gazette, 2 weeks later with the Independent, I'll give props to KRDO. They have been reporting. I don't know how much they've been investigating, but they have been reporting on it. But most of the media seemingly was ignoring it. And we called them out on it. And that's what we're here at the Peak to do. We don't want to be the only media in town. We love the environment. Unfortunately, media doesn't work together. All the different entities, like I can't even get people from other stations on the show because they have non-competes and things like that. It's very frustrating. We should be working together for the common good. But I want to read out of the Daily Wire article that came out just today, May 9th, regarding this. And I want to do and this segment is about calling out everyone, law enforcement, the press, community leaders, including pastors, and the public, and everyone else, elected official, to stay on top of this. Why? To get Mayor Yemi? No. To find out whether he did it and needs to be held accountable or whether he didn't, and his name needs to be cleared completely, and we need to move on because all the rumor and innuendo and everything that goes on in this town is not healthy, and it polarizes. So, quoting out of the Daily Wire article, the Gazette reported that Mobolade, quote, appeared flustered as he fielded questions from the defense about the timeline of events and specific details about his communication with Bernard. He often was not able to provide an answer, end quote. He could not explain the 5-minute phone call. Derek Bernard testified that the 5-minute call was about the hoax and that Mobolade, quote, promised to squash the story when Bernard expressed concern over backlash, this according to the Gazette. The day after the call, of this call that Mayor Yemi made with Derek Bernard in jail, KRDO ran a story quoting the Mobolade campaign, asking people not to give the incident any oxygen. At trial, Mobolade acknowledged that, quote, he tried to keep the story under wraps at the time, saying he didn't want that to be the story of Colorado Springs. Emails obtained by the Daily Wire show that after he became mayor, Mobolade used city employees to deter the local media from picking up the Daily Wire's report that Mobolade had given false information to the FBI. When the Daily Wire notified spokeswoman Vanessa Zink, she's spokeswoman press contact, she's the woman we've had Mayor Yemi on the show. She's the one I contacted today and was told that Mayor Yemi's not interested to come on. When the Daily Wire notified spokeswoman Vanessa Zink about the allegation that Mobolade lied to the FBI, the mayor's chief of staff, James Fabos, intervened to encourage her to take an ad hominem approach, calling the Daily Wire, quote, bizarre far right, end quote, outlet whose reporters, quote, don't actually qualify as journalists. When the Gazette, and interestingly, when 2 weeks after this, the Independent, the former Independent that is now in new hands, but the Independent at the time came out with the story, that's exactly what they did. They attacked the Daily Wire, not investigating it. They attacked the Daily Wire. When the Gazette asked for comment about the Daily Wire story, Zink wrote, quote, use caution in perpetuating gossip and rumors from politically biased outlets, end quote. Then continuing, I guess I had hoped, she wrote this, Vanessa Zink, I guess I had hoped that our community could rise above what appears to be political bait from a source that doesn't even have the decency to blur out racial slurs on the graphics, but sadly it seems that is not possible. When media outlets used a blurred version of the photo to obscure the N-word, the blurring also concealed the fact that the fire was clearly coming not from the wooden cross, but from a small amount of twine wrapped around it. That was strong evidence from the beginning that it was a hoax, since twine would only burn for a few seconds, meaning that people who took the photo and sent it to the media were likely the same people who set the fire rather than a passerby. At trial, security camera footage confirmed that the fire only burned for 20 seconds. And I do want to make a correction here. It is quoted in here that Dave Donaldson, don't know whether he said it or not in the article, that Vanessa Zink resigned from her job shortly after the trial ended. In communicating with her today, she is still on the job working for Mayor Yemi's office. So, Mayor Yemi, we call to you to come on us, to come on other media and actually talk about this, not just come out with official statements. District Attorney Michael Allen, this is not just seemingly a crime and a hate crime, but election interference, and you have an election fraud unit in District 4 as the DA. He has told me that he needs people to step forward and actually file a complaint. So I would call on the public to do that so that can happen. Councilman Dave Donaldson, thank you for staying on this and continuing to stay on this to call this out. House Rep Regina English, who was implicated by Derek Bernard of not only being in on this hoax, but when she ran against Rachel Stovall, who is associated with the Peak, in House District 17 a couple years ago, and Rachel Stovall had a sign with red spray paint that wrote killer on it because, long story, but Rachel Stovall, unfortunately, her husband died during COVID, and some people said that she killed him. And so that there was this hate crime hoax back from 2022 that seemingly was related. Regina English, we call on you. The DOJ and the FBI, we call on you to step forward and follow through with this investigation. The Colorado Springs Police Department, our local community, the church, and especially the press. We are, as press, law enforcement. I've realized that in doing this job. But we are the ones who everything you say can and will be kept confidential according to SHIELD laws. So we actually have a whistleblower different from the FBI whistleblower who isn't ready yet to be identified. Hopefully they will, who corroborated all of this with us just weeks after the Daily Wire article. And we've mentioned that, but they were also waiting for the trial. We were waiting for the trial. Now the trial is over. The defendants have been convicted, even though how can they be of a hate crime hoax when there was no hate against Mayor Yemi? That is very confusing, and we don't know why the jury, within just a couple of hours, convicted them. That's a whole other story, and the whole story behind Derek Bernard and that. But everyone in our community, I'll say this again, we cannot let this fester. We need to investigate it as press, law enforcement, and everyone else to the point where Yemi is exonerated or he's held accountable, or else this will just be another reason why we all think that there are special protected classes in our region and that there is no justice, and we cannot have that. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman, and we'll be right back. Didn't have time to get to you, but come up with a final statement.
Well, what I'm going to say is I'm going to credit you and your citizen journalist program for having us in place every day at that trial so that we can corroborate the Daily Wire story and maybe make the point it's a shame that it broke. Did you already say that it broke nationally?
Well, I've said that from the beginning, but say it again.
Yeah.
Like, why in the world are we not reporting on this? Why did it have to break nationally over and over and over again?
Okay, so that's what I intended.
You know, why is this? And my only thing I don't like about the article is they didn't quote us when we've been investigating more than ever, and we've reached out to this Luke Raziak, and he's never gotten back to us. But now I think the time has come because he continues to stay on the story, and we have more information about it than anybody.
Well, it's all over the website too. It's like,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
How many shows have you done with it? 9.
I think today is 9 full programs plus about 8 or 10 others where we've done some kind of update.
Wow.
And the programs that we've done have linked Yemi to these people way before, with Men of Influence, that group in town, the Democratic Socialists, the BLM meeting at his former establishment, that he had meetings there.
You mean the slide?
Well, no, the slide was the radio show.
Yeah.
And that, well, yes,
The
Yemi
gathering.
had been on the radio show, as a lot of people had. But that there were Black Lives Matter meetings that were taking place at the what was it, the Goose, his bar,
business, right.
his coffee shop bar, whatever it was. That he was having BLM there. That there's been all of these connections. The fact that the Democratic Party had a mayoral debate where they only invited Yemi, and when other mayoral candidates showed up, they wouldn't let them on. And that the day after the election, the Democratic Party of El Paso took credit that they were the ones that got Yemi elected, and he had to distance himself from them because he's an independent, not a Democrat. So we made all those connections the very first week. We did 4 shows in a row back in November on this, connecting all of these things. Darcy Schoening was here. She had put all this evidence together before the election that no one would listen to. regarding Yemi.
Hmm.
So we connected. You know, is he potentially, is his personality and his actions point to the fact that maybe he might have lied to the feds? You know, we tried to make all these connections there, and we'll continue to do so. And if Yemi won't come on, you know, we can't get his side of it. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of The Peak. This is show 250 for The Peak. So thank you for making us, well, unfortunately, the best kept secret in town. So tell more people about us, about our website, thepeak.news. Our 250 now will have podcasts. And the fact that we have been on this story from the time that it broke back in November in a way that no other press has. And we're going to continue to call for the press, for local government, for everyone to stay on top of this because, again, egregious claims against our mayor. He needs to be cleared or he needs to be held accountable. Candace Stutzriem, citizen, journalist, reporter, final thoughts.
Well, I want to personally give you a shout out, Chaim Goldman, for
My honor.
for your citizen journalist program that you have stood up here. I'm one of several that were trained, and because of what you've done, we were able to have journalists present in the courtroom for every day of the trial.
Because there were no recordings or anything being
That's
done.
right.
You had to
have
be in there taking
You
a.
can't take photographs of the exhibits. You have to just write really fast. And then we were able to phone in our reports. But most importantly, it's what I just said to you. I am able to corroborate the veracity of this Daily Wire story. Here, it ended up breaking nationally. It should have broken right here from the Peak News, but it's taken.
Well, we weren't prepared, but I think it should have broken nationally from somebody local. And so let's all be journalists. Let's stay on top of this. Let's do this. Candace, thanks so much
Thank you.
for what you're doing and continuing to do. Well, that's it for our broadcast week. Tomorrow's Friday. Dirk Hobbs and the Business Digest Weekly will be here. Stay tuned. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. we'll be here. Stay tuned for the Larry Elder Show coming up next here on The Answer. And check out our will be 250 podcasts on our website. The Peak, we say the quiet stuff out loud in order to serve you for such a time as this. And please join us so we can say it even louder and louder and louder. Shalom, y'all. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. There's the shofar. Did you blow that when they recorded it?
I did, and I used to blow it live on the air.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and but